Welcome into another episode of Locked On Phillies. In today's episode, we're evaluating the 2023 season of Phillies starting catcher JT Realmuto. Have we started to see the first signs of decline for the veteran catcher? Or was this just a little bit of a down year? Or was it even a down year? We'll discuss that and also kind of the state of the position of catcher for the Philadelphia Phillies going forward on today's episode. Let's get going.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm Connor Thomas, your host. Thank you so much for checking us out. Appreciate it. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube. We're getting closer every day to 2,000 subscribers on YouTube. So appreciate everyone who's already done that. And if you haven't, it takes you 2 seconds, costs you no money, and it gets you notifications when new episodes are posted. So if you enjoy our content here on Locked On Phillies, please subscribe. I would really appreciate it if you did. And we're in the middle of our offseason programming. As we go through, there's going to be some news at some points, like we stopped a little bit for the Aaron Nola contract and everything, but we're running through player by player, position by position, the 2023 Philadelphia Phillies and evaluating their individual seasons. Now, I haven't been going in a specific order. I've been asking you in the comments to these episodes to let me know who you want me to evaluate next. We've done a bunch already. I made a whole playlist on YouTube so you can keep track easily of who we've already done. But JT Realmuto is a guy that we have not yet jumped into when it comes to the evaluation of his 2023 season. So that's what we're going to do today. Let me know in the comments who you would like me to evaluate in the next episode for the 2023 player evaluations. And we'll continue to get into that. But JT Realmuto is a very interesting one. So let's jump into it on the Philadelphia Phillies catcher. And he had a down year by his career standard. So his career numbers, he's a 273 hitter career-wise. He batted 252 this year, so down 21 points in batting average. What he's averaging over 162, let's just look how it stacks up compared to this year. Because he had 20 home runs this season, not bad at all. His 162 game average, 22. So, yeah, not bad for JT Realmuto. Not a huge drop-off, maybe slightly down. He had 5 triples. His 162 average for that, 5. So right about on the mark there. A couple less doubles. 28 this year, 33 the career average there. I mean, he's not really that far off. He had 16 stolen bases. His career average is 13. Then you had the bigger bases this year and the different stuff with the pitch clock. So you'd expect that number to be a little bit higher. But, I mean, 35 walks this year, 43 is his career average. Like, he wasn't way off on anything. 138 strikeouts this year. 134 is his 162 game average. So it's just like, and now I know he didn't play 162 games this year. Like, he played in 135 contests. So those numbers are a little bit off, a little bit inflated, really, you should say, when you talk about what you're looking at for his career averages. But I don't know. I didn't think he had as bad of a season as it looked like at points. He had some really bad slumps, and he had some really, really hot stretches. Now, JT Realmuto, here's where that gets kind of scary, is he used to be one of the more consistent players on the Philadelphia Phillies, at least, well, definitely still behind the plate, but at the dish as well. And if he's become kind of that more Rhys Hoskins, like streaky-ish hitter where he's going to have a month where he's otherworldly, then he's going to have a month where he is not contributing anything, and those are just going to flip-flop back and forth. That makes you a little bit less sure of what you have offensively from him. I mean, his slash line this year, 252 batting average, 310 OBP, 452 slugging, 762 OPS. All of those numbers, each and every one of them, were down from 2022. And I believe also everyone but slugging percentage was down from 2021. So the number just dropped off offensively a little bit. He was still a finalist for a Gold Glove. He didn't win one, but he was a finalist for catcher Gold Glove award in the National League. So I don't know. Here's the thing, right? Like, he had a down season. He did. But last year, He was 7th in MVP voting. So he had an outstanding season. He won the Silver Slugger last year. He won the Gold Glove Award last year. He was 7th in MVP. The year before that, in 2021, he was an All-Star. So, you have to understand, the ceiling for JT Realmuto is super, super high still. And the bar he set is super, super high. So when he has a down year like he had this year, it doesn't kill you. But you start to have this feeling about and we'll talk about this coming up in the next segment, is he starting to decline? Now, JT Realmuto is, I believe, 32 years of age. Let me just confirm that real quick. Yeah, he's 32, turning 33 this offseason. So you'll be looking at a 33-year-old catcher with 2 years left on his deal. He's not a free agent until 2026. So you still got him for 2 more years, which is good. You want to have control for JT Realmuto. And that was why that signing was so big a couple years back, to sign him to a long-term extension, because he's still been good. I don't think by the end of the 2025 season, we're going to be like, why in the world is JT Realmuto still here? You shouldn't have signed him long-term. He stinks now. No, I don't think we're going to get there. JT Realmuto is still very productive. I mean, the guy hit for the cycle this year. The first Philly, that might have been the biggest accomplishment of his season. The fact that we don't have to look back to David Bell against the Expos to try and figure out the last time the Phillies had a player hit for the cycle. JT Realmuto did that, funny enough, in Arizona against the Diamondbacks earlier on in the season. So, and that was a stretch where he was on absolute fire. He's still completely capable of playing top-level baseball. So how do I evaluate his 2023 season? He had a bit of a down year at the plate. And I think he had a bit of a down year defensively, too. There are points where it seemed like it was easier to run on the Phillies this year than it has been in past years, but that's also because of the new rules. You completely have to take those into account. And if you do account for the pitch clock and everything like that, the bigger bases, the limit on number of pickoff moves, I thought JT Realmuto had a nice season. I'll tell you what, too, an underrated part of JT Realmuto's game, he was really, really good from Jump Street at calling time if the pitch clock was winding down at a big spot. He did it with Craig Kimbrell a bunch. Now, I get terrified every time because Craig Kimbrell doesn't look at JT Realmuto when he comes to his set position. So there would be times where JT Realmuto would be half out to the mound already, and Kimbrell would lift his leg and turn and get ready to deliver a pitch, and JT's out there with his mask off 20 feet away from him. And that's got to be terrifying. But the point is, he's calling time in big spots, manipulating the pitch clock, saving his pitchers from violations, controlling that aspect of the game. He's a very smart baseball player still. He's one of the top players on this team. Even if he has taken a step down offensively, which the numbers would say he has in the 2023 season compared to previous seasons, I still can't get mad at JT for his 2023 season. I don't think JT Realmuto was a reason that the Phillies did not reach their ceiling. Now, I mean, he kind of is, because everybody is, because in games 6 and 7, the offense was just so non-existent for the Philadelphia Phillies in the NLCS that you have to blame everybody. And it starts with the higher paid players, and JT Realmuto is one of those superstar players. But looking at the course of the regular season, there were points where we were talking about JT Realmuto having a really down year. The numbers don't show you he was bad. The numbers just say he was below what he normally is. And that's something that may become a trend going forward just simply because of age. But it was not a bad 2023 season for JT Realmuto. It just wasn't a great 2023 season for JT Realmuto. I'd say it was just kind of, and this is different than what you normally see from him, I'd say this year was forgettable for JT Realmuto. Outside of the cycle, he didn't really have many of those eye-popping plays or huge at-bats or really clutch just moments for the Philadelphia Phillies. Just wasn't JT Realmuto this year. And some people would say the money you're paying him, he should be doing that. Some people would look at the strength of his overall roster and say he doesn't have to. You can make that evaluation on your own, but I'm okay with the season that JT Realmuto put in. If he gives you those numbers again in 2024, I think you can win with them. And that's why I'm okay with the 2023 season, even if you expect more from JT Realmuto at this point in his career, or at least from his track record. But coming up, we need to have a candid conversation about JT Realmuto potentially declining due to age and his usage. But don't worry, Phillies fans. I have some good news, even if we do come to an agreement that he's declining. We'll discuss that coming up as we continue Locked On Phillies. First of all, I want to tell you about FanDuel. FanDuel Sportsbook. You can score this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. So you can just run through the app, which is super easy to use. And you can find a bet where the team on the money line super favored and just put $5 on them. And that's $150 if your team wins right in your account. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Like I told you, the app's super easy to use. And there's a wide range of bets outside of just money line bets. I mean, you can bet parlays, you can bet props, you can bet futures, you can bet over-unders, all kinds of stuff. If you can imagine a bet, they've got it on FanDuel. It's an awesome app. It's easy as anything to use. The interface is awesome. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make the most out of this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. All right, so here's the thing with JT Realmuto, right? Let's say he is declining, and he's going to be 33 going into this 2024 season. So you have him for his 33-year-old season and his 34-year-old season. Then you have to decide after 2025 what you're going to do at the position. So we're kind of getting into that zone with 2 years left on his contract of what is the next, like who's next after JT Realmuto. We need to start to have that conversation because I can't imagine you're going to trot out a 35, 36, 37-year-old JT Realmuto back there on a championship competing team. And he's been really good, and he's very athletic for a catcher. That's where we're ultimately going to get to with this conversation, I think. But he's really athletic for a catcher. He's not just one of these big guys who can't run or can't move or can't hit or whatever and just sits back there and blocks balls and has good hands. No, he does a lot more than that. Guy had 5 triples this year. Guy hit for the cycle this year. Guy's great defensively, not just throwing guys out, but moving around. So I look at JT Realmuto and I say, all right, you can survive him for the next 2 years, but if he's declining, will it cost the Phillies an opportunity to really compete for a championship? Trey Turner's great. Bryce Harper's great. Kyle Schwarber, Nick Castellanos, those guys are still here. That's awesome. And you've got some young talent. But part of the ceiling of this team is having a catcher like JT Realmuto who's elite defensively and elite for the position offensively. And if you don't have that, well, that's another step back in your lineup that you already took by losing Rhys Hoskins, and now Bryce Harper moves to first. Okay, that's good, but you don't have many places where you can really, really upgrade anywhere. You're not going to trade for someone to play over JT Realmuto. So he's kind of got to be the guy at the catcher position, right? It's not like so here's the thing. If Nick Castellanos declines, you can trade that contract. You can get somebody else out in right field. You can find a way to do it. You maybe have a better defender out there. There are other options. Catcher, you don't really have JT Realmuto's out there, even if he's taken a step back. So him declining might leave you in a tough spot when it comes to how you build this lineup. And that's something Rob Thompson will have to work with in the 2024 season. But here's the good news, right? JT Realmuto, this is why that's good news actually in a roundabout way. Even a declining JT Realmuto is probably better than 90% of the catchers in baseball. I want to read you these numbers again. Offensively, for a catcher to put up these numbers in 2023, he had a 3.6 WAR. He had 20 home runs, had 123 hits, a 252 batting average. 5 triples, doubles. He had 28 doubles. He had 63 RBIs. He had 16 stolen bases. You're looking at a guy that you don't see those numbers at that position very often at all. You just don't. Catchers don't put up those numbers. And if they do, they're not great defensively. He's also great defensively. He's in the Gold Glove conversation every single year. That's the point of what I'm getting at here, folks. JT Realmuto, even on a decline, is still one of the most valuable players at his position. And that's why I think the Phillies can get away with it. That's why, when you see JT Realmuto declining, you might be like, we need to figure out something else to do at the catcher position that's not JT in the near future if he's starting to wear and tear. We hear every year about the usage. He plays so many games. He does, especially for a catcher who you want to try and give them as many days off as you can because of the wear and tear on your knees and your body. He gets beat up back there too. Like, it's often that JT Realmuto is getting hit in the head, the face mask, the body, the knees are hurting him. And he just soldiers through. He's not a very injury-prone player. He's very durable, and that's a great thing. That shows that his age, well, he may be able to withstand being 33, 34, 35 years old as this contract rounds out. But my point is that a declining JT Realmuto is better than a lot of other teams' options at catcher. So if he does decline, you're still in a better spot than a lot of teams. That's the thing we got to remember. Like, we're used to such a standard of play at catcher since the Phillies traded for JT Realmuto from the Miami Marlins. But having that luxury doesn't mean it's a necessity to win. It's nice to have a catcher who can go out and, let me read you the numbers from last year's season where he was 7th in MVP voting, where he batted 276 /276, 342, 478. He had 22 home runs. He had 84 RBIs, 21 stolen bases, won a Gold Glove, won a Silver Slugger. Like, when you see that, you're like, wow, what a value this guy is a catcher. And it makes you forget that the average team has a guy at the position hitting 12 home runs and batting 240 and playing good defense back there, and that's what you get. They can't run. They probably don't have a triple in their career. Like, JT Realmuto, career triples. I just want to take a look at this. He's at 33 career triples. I'd be surprised if that isn't leading Major League Baseball for all active catchers. Who else can run like him at that position is my point. So I know we're used to a certain standard of play from JT Realmuto, but you need to understand that even if he takes a step back, even if he declines due to age, he's still going to be better than a lot of players in baseball at that position, and the Phillies can 100% still win with him like that. So maybe we just need to come to an understanding that JT Realmuto is not always going to be this player, but unless he's really, really not meeting the standard of the position, not the standard of him personally, the standard of the position, we don't really have a problem. That's going to be a tough thing because, I don't know. Think about other teams in Philadelphia. If Joel Embiid just became a good center, it would be like, what in the world's going on? Like, we can't have him on the Sixers anymore. Or it's not the same for the team. If Jalen Hurts became just a good quarterback, the Eagles would look totally different. But baseball is such an individual team sport, so it's kind of weird. You can have guys affect the game a lot from an individual position, or you can have guys not affect it as much as you would see for the big-time players in football and basketball. So bottom line, I don't know how JT Realmuto is going to look in 2024. I don't know if this is a decline or if it was just a down season. And I don't know that if he does have a decline, it will kill the Phillies or not. But I feel like because of the high bar he set, even a declining JT Realmuto, I'll say it another time, is better than the other options available. So you're still in as good of a spot as you can be in. It might not be as good of a spot at the position as you were last year, 2 years ago, anything like that, but you're still in a good spot with him back there. He earned the BCIB moniker the past couple seasons. I don't know that he still is, but he's still in the conversation, and I think that's good enough for me. But having the best catcher in baseball doesn't guarantee you always have the best catcher out there. And you need to look at the position as a whole, especially as you try and extend JT Realmuto's career and get more time out of the guy you consider the best catcher in baseball. So my question is the catcher position for the Philadelphia Phillies in good shape? We're going to discuss that coming up and do a little look at the position as a whole as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Phillies. All right, so we've established JT Realmuto, down year in 2023 by his standard, but still not a bad year. Declining, he may be, but if he does, the Phillies aren't in the worst possible spot just because of how talented he was at his peak anyway. You still have so much of a buffer from great JT Realmuto to bad baseball. There's bad JT Realmuto is still good catching is basically the point of this whole thing. But he's not going to be able to play every game. And as he gets older, the wear and tear on his body is going to kick in. Father time's undefeated. It comes for everybody. Injuries pop up more. talent level decreases, the ability to do things just it falls off for a catcher earlier than most, and he's going to be 33. So we need to have a conversation about how the Phillies mitigate that. And maybe it's some time, I don't know, we've seen him play first base once or twice. DHing is going to be tough because Kyle Schwarber's there and he basically has that locked down. Like if JT Realmuto's not catching, I don't know where else you play him. So he's kind of got to catch a good amount of innings to be effective for the Philadelphia Phillies. But if he's unable to do so, Garrett Stubbs is your backup. And I know we all like Stubbs. I know we do. Like, he's a likable guy, but the comments about jumping in the pool in Arizona kind of rubbed some people the wrong way, feeling like he was giving the Diamondbacks bulletin board material. And he didn't really do much this year. He hit the greatest home run in the history of baseball in the hangover game, his first home run and only home run of the year. So he'll always have that. And that was a magical moment of the season. The day after the Philadelphia Phillies clinched, stepping in and playing in that game after partying like crazy. And he's a great locker room guy. Like, as much as some people in the fan base might have been annoyed with Stubbs for the way that he talked about the pool and the Arizona Diamondbacks and that stuff, I don't think there's any Philadelphia Phillies players that hold that against him. Like, they love having him there. And I don't think he's a terrible option backing up JT Realmuto, but I don't think he's the best possible option. I know that might be hearsay. I'm saying something bad about Garrett Stubbs, but like, when do we get to the point where we look and we say, okay, Stubbs is a fun guy to have around, but is he the best possible backup? And do you need to invest in the position a little bit more if JT Realmuto is declining and he's playing less innings? Like, can you get away with, I don't know, 50 games of Garrett Stubbs? Because this past year you would not have been able to. He wasn't good enough. And you didn't have to, but I'm just saying there's going to come a time where it's not JT Realmuto's playing 130 some games. He's going to be playing 120. 110, maybe an injury in there or something because of the wear and tear and stuff like that. Do you trust Garrett Stubbs? Going into last season, I probably would have said yes. I should say going into the 2023 season. But after this past year, I don't know that I trust him in a major backup role. The good news is backing up JT Realmuto still hasn't become the major backup role that some positions are. But it's something for the Phillies to think about. Maybe if not this season, definitely after the 2024 season. And that's why it's so important that JT Realmuto stays durable. He can bat 240 if he wants, but I need you to play because Garrett Stubbs, I don't think, is a full backup solution to any catcher, at least on this team. And while he's still here, and Garrett Stubbs is going to be here this year and be a locker room guy again, there's such a huge drop-off that you might need to consider investing in a better backup catcher. And Garrett Stubbs is not going to be a long-term answer. So after a while, you're going to have to look at a heir apparent to JT Realmuto, who you don't have. You traded Logan O'Hoppe to the Los Angeles Angels last trade deadline to try and make a run at the World Series. And hey, it paid off. He made it to the World Series last year. But the point is, he was the guy that was supposed to be the next guy. And he ain't here no more. So who do you potentially look at, or when do you start looking at another guy to take JT's spot in the future? That's something that needs to be in Dave Dombrowski's mind as well. So catcher is in a complicated position. JT Realmuto is still, compared to his peers, excellent at the position and at the dish. But we're starting to get to the point where it's like, okay, you can start to see a little bit of a slope down, and it's better to be prepared now for the moment when JT Realmuto is not himself anymore. Then it's to wait and just be like, when did this happen? So this is more of a precautionary evaluation, but I do still think he had a solid 2023 season. I'm excited to see him behind the dish for the Phillies again next year. And can the Phillies win a World Series with JT Realmuto as their catcher? If your answer isn't a resounding yes, you don't understand how good this guy is at the position still. So that's my evaluation of that. Let me know in the comments who you want me to get to next, and we'll get to them in the next episode of Locked On Phillies. But thank you so much for checking us out. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Please make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing to the YouTube, all that great stuff. And I'll talk to you next time on the next episode of Locked On Phillies.